The person you keep attracting is a mirror, not a mistake. Listen to me. I want to say something that is going to be uncomfortable, not cruel, not judgmental, but genuinely, usefully uncomfortable, in the way that only the truth can be uncomfortable when it arrives in a place that has been carefully insulated against it. You are not unlucky in love. You are not a victim of a world full of damaged, unavailable, narcissistic, emotionally stunted people who keep finding their way into your life through some cruel cosmic joke. You are not surrounded by wrong people, because wrong people happen to be the only kind that exists in your particular city, your particular social circle, your particular era of human history. You keep attracting the same person in different bodies with different names, with different surface presentations that fool you every time for approximately the same amount of car's time before the familiar pattern emerges again. You keep attracting this person because something in you is calling for them. Something beneath your conscious preferences, beneath your carefully considered list of qualities you are looking for, beneath the therapy you have done and the books you have read and the genuine, sincere intention you carry to finally this time choose differently. Something beneath all of that is broadcasting a frequency. And the people who arrive in your life are simply the ones who can hear it, think about it, not defensively, not with the immediate impulse to explain why your situation is different, why the people you send the stitch and wherein container and dinin midmin their sunfacens, and ways that were genuinely problematic in ways that had nothing to do with you, why the pattern is a coincidence rather than a signal. Just sit with the possibility, just for a moment. The possibility that the common element in every relationship that has not worked is not bad luck or bad timing or a world full of the wrong people. The common element is you. And this is not blame. This is the most hopeful thing I can say to you. Because if the pattern is in the world, you are helpless. You can only wait for the world to change, which it will not do on your schedule. But if the pattern is in you, if something in you is generating it, calling for it, recreating it, with remarkable consistency across different relationships, different cities, different decades of your life, then the pattern can change. The moment you understand what is creating it, the moment you see it clearly, rather than looking through it without seeing it, the moment the unconscious becomes conscious, the whole game changes. But the most important part is still coming, so stay with me. Let me tell you a story. There was once a tuning fork, a perfectly crafted, beautifully made tuning fork that had been set vibrating at a particular frequency long ago, so long ago that the fork itself could not remember the moment the vibrating began. And this tuning fork had a remarkable property that all tuning forks have. It caused other objects that could vibrate at the same frequency to begin vibrating in response, not through any intention, not through any choice, simply through the invisible resonance of matching frequencies finding each other across a space. And the tuning fork could not understand why certain objects always appeared in its life, why certain kinds of people were always drawn to it, why the same essential pattern kept showing up in relationship after relationship. It had tried many times to choose differently, had looked carefully at new prospects and seen qualities that seemed genuinely different. And for a while they were different. The surface was different, but the frequency was the same. And eventually, beneath the different surface, the same resonance emerged, the same dynamic, the same familiar suffering. The tuning fork went to many teachers, read many books, tried many techniques, and everyone focused on the objects that were appearing, on how to identify them sooner, how to screen for the problematic frequency, how to choose better objects more carefully with more sophisticated criteria. And no one ever suggested changing the frequency of the tuning fork itself. Think about it. This is the whole secret. And it is the secret that almost no advice about relationships ever reaches. Because the advice always focuses on the other person, on how to identify them, how to avoid them, how to leave them, how to protect yourself from them, how to choose more wisely next time. The entire conversation is organized around the objects appearing in your life rather than around the frequency that is calling them. Have you ever noticed that people who have genuinely done deep interior work, who have genuinely changed something fundamental in how they relate to themselves, that these people, relationships change dramatically, not because they learned better techniques for screening partners, not because they moved to a different city with a better dating pool, but because something in them changed, some frequency shifted, and what the new frequency called into their lives was genuinely, structurally different from what the old frequency had been calling. The same city, the same social world, completely different people showing up. This is not mystical. This is not magic. This is the completely ordinary, completely reliable consequence of the fact that who you are, not who you think you are, not who you present yourself as being, but who you actually are at the level of your deepest and most defended beliefs about yourself, determines the quality of experience that flows toward you, determines what feels familiar, determines what feels like home, determines what produces the specific chemistry that you have learned to recognize as attraction. And this is where something deeply uncomfortable needs to be examined. The people you are attracted to, the ones who produce that particular quality of aliveness in your body that you have learned to associate with love or chemistry or rightness or destiny. Look at them carefully, not at their best qualities, at the whole picture. Look at the anxiety they produce as well as the excitement. Look at the uncertainty they carry into your life as well as the stimulation. Look at the work you find yourself doing to maintain their interest, to manage their moods, to earn the consistency of their affection that somehow never quite becomes fully reliable. Do you see something familiar in this work? Something that feels, despite the pain it produces, like home? Because that is the question, not whether this person is good for you. You probably know the answer to that. But why does this dynamic feel like home? Why does the unavailability feel like attraction rather than a reason to leave? Why does the uncertainty produce chemistry rather than simple, clean discomfort that sends you elsewhere? The answer is in your history, not as an excuse, as information. The patterns of love that we learned in childhood, the specific, particular, completely unique to us configuration of how love felt when we first encountered it, the how it was given and withheld, what we had to do to earn it, and sao verena banki wailed to earn it, these patterns become the template. The brain, which is above all else a pattern recognition machine, learns what love feels like through this early template, and then for the rest of your life, it recognizes as love the things that match this template, even when, especially when, the template is organized around pain. If love in your original experience arrived unpredictably, you will experience unpredictable people as exciting rather than unstable. If love in your original experience required you to manage someone else's emotional state in order to feel safe, you will experience people who need emotional else's management as familiar and therefore comfortable even when you are exhausted by it. If love in your original experience was conditional, given when you performed correctly, withheld when you didn't, you will experience conditional love as normal and unconditional love as unsettling, even suspicious. Too easy. Something must be wrong. And nobody tells you this. Nobody sits you down and says, the people you find most irresistibly attractive are probably the people who most closely resemble your original wounding, not in their surface characteristics, not necessarily. They produce in you, in the particular quality of aliveness, mixed with anxiety that your nervous system has learned to call chemistry. Observe this in yourself. Right now, think of the person you have been most powerfully attracted to. Not the healthiest relationship you have had. The most powerful attraction. The one where the chemistry was undeniable. Where the pull was almost physical. Where you found yourself willing to overlook things that in a calmer state of mind you knew were not okay. That attraction, that specific, intense, almost compulsive quality of wanting, what did it feel like in your body? Now think of your original experience of love. Think of the person who was responsible for loving you first, who had the greatest power over your early sense of being lovable or not. What did their love feel like? How was it given? How was it withheld? What did you have to do to earn it? What happened when you couldn't? Just watch what happens when you hold these two memories side by side. Notice if there is a resemblance, not in the surface details, in the emotional signature, in the specific quality of the feeling in your body, in what was required of you, in what remained despite everything, just slightly out of reach. Think about it. This is the pattern. And the pattern is not a punishment. It is not evidence of something irreparably broken in you. It is the completely logical consequence of the fact that the brain learns love through experience and then recognizes love through the signature of that learning. It is, in its own strange way, loyal to the template, loyal to what it learned when it was most vulnerable and most impressionable and most dependent on getting this right. But here is the most important thing. The loyalty is not fixed. The template is not permanent. The frequency of the tuning fork can change, not through willpower, not through the determination to choose differently, which has already failed more times than hell you would like to count and will continue to fail. Because willpower operates at the level of conscious choice, while the template operates at the level of unconscious recognition that happens before conscious choice has any access to the situation. The template changes through awareness, through the kind of direct, unflinching, compassionate seeing of the pattern that we were discussing earlier, through the willingness to look at not just the people who have appeared in your life, but at the internal landscape that was broadcasting the frequency that called them. And this requires something that is the most difficult and most necessary thing in the process of genuine change. It requires you to grieve, to actually grieve the original wound rather than continuing to reenact it in the hope that this time it will end differently. To feel the pain of the original experience of conditional love, of love withheld, of love that required you to diminish yourself in order to receive it, to feel it completely, rather than converting it, as you have been doing, into the ongoing project of finding someone who will finally give you what you did not receive then. Because here is the paradox. The more urgently you seek through your relationships to heal the original wound, the more you guarantee that the people you attract will be the ones most capable of reopening it. The more you need the relationship to compensate for something that happened before the relationship began, the more you bring to it a quality of need that genuine health in another person will not be able to meet, because genuine health does not recognize need of that depth as love. It recognizes it as something that requires a different kind of response, a therapeutic response, a parental response, not a partner response. And what does recognize it as love? What is called by that frequency of unresolved need-seeking resolution through relationship? The person who has their own version of the same wound, the person who needs to be needed in exactly the way you need to need, the person whose particular damage fits your particular damage the way two puzzle pieces fit, which is deeply satisfying, in the way that fitting is satisfying, and has nothing whatsoever to do with health. This is the strange thing about attraction between wounded people. It feels like recognition. It feels like finally being seen and understood. And in a sense, it is recognition. Recognition of a shared frequency, a shared damage, a shared way of organizing the experience of love around pain and uncertainty and the perpetual, exhausting, never quite resolved work of earning what should simply be given. The recognition is real, the fit is real, the chemistry is real, and none of it is love. It is the meeting of two wounds that have found each other. And wounds, when they meet, do not heal each other. They reopen each other. Sometimes gently, sometimes catastrophically, but always, eventually, in the familiar shape of the original suffering. And this is where everything changes. Because this understanding, this clear, direct, compassionate understanding of what has actually been happening is not the end, it is the beginning. It is the beginning of the possibility of a genuinely different kind of relating, not better techniques for screening, not a more carefully curated dating profile, not the decision to try a different type of person, a different age, a different background. These things change the surface without touching the frequency. And the frequency will find its match regardless of the surface. The way a radio station will come in clearly on any receiver that is tuned to it, regardless of the size or the shape or the color of the receiver. The change is in the frequency itself, in the interior, in the relationship you have with yourself at the level where the pattern was formed. In your capacity to give yourself right now the quality of love and presence and unconditional acceptance that you have been outsourcing to a series of people who were never equipped to provide it and could not have provided it, no matter how perfectly they had performed. Think about what it means to actually give this to yourself, not as a spiritual concept, not as an affirmation you repeat in the mirror, but as a lived, practiced, daily reality. To meet your own anxiety with the same patience you have offered to partners who were drowning you in theirs. To meet your own needs with the same attentiveness you have brought to people who responded to your attentiveness by needing more. To meet your own pain with the same compassion you have offered endlessly and often fruitlessly to people who were not ready to receive it. When you begin to do this, genuinely practically, in the specific moments when the old pattern would have reached outward for what it needed, when you begin to do this, the frequency changes slowly, gradually, incompletely, because this is not a destination, but a direction, but genuinely. And what the new frequency calls into your life begins, slowly, to look different. Not because you are choosing differently, though you are, but because you are different. Because the resonance is different. Because what feels like home has begun to include spaciousness and consistency and the quiet, unspectacular, deeply nourishing quality of being genuinely met by someone who is also genuinely present to themselves. This does not feel like the old chemistry. Not at first. It feels, honestly, a little flat, a little too easy, a little like something might be missing, because what is missing is the anxiety. And the anxiety for so long was what you called aliveness, what you called connection, what you called love. But stay with it. Let the flatness teach you what genuine steadiness feels like. Let the ease teach you what it is to receive without working for it. Let the consistency teach you what it is to trust rather than to perpetually, exhaustingly manage. And gradually, in this new space, something grows that the old chemistry never produced, not the fireworks. Something quieter and more real than fireworks. The capacity to actually be present with another person, to actually see them rather than seeing your wound reflected in them, to actually receive what they are offering rather than scanning it for evidence of what is being withheld, to actually love them, which requires as a prerequisite, as a foundation, as an absolute non-negotiable that you have stopped needing them to complete you. Because love that does not need is the only love that is actually free. And freedom is the only condition in which love can fully live. That is the whole secret. The person you keep attracting is a mirror. And the mirror is not your enemy. The mirror is your most honest teacher. It is showing you with remarkable precision and remarkable compassion exactly where the work is, exactly where the frequency needs to shift, exactly what needs to be met in yourself before you will be capable of genuinely meeting someone else. Just watch, just observe, not the person in the mirror, the one who is looking. That is where everything begins, and that is where everything changes. Think about it.